Thank you for joining me for what I'm more or less calling my story/spoiler run through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is your warning that from this point forward, this video and all of the videos in this series are full of spoilers and speculation for the complete story in Rebirth, so everything we're given in game. It will be looking at ideas and elements from Remake as well as the original Final Fantasy VII, start to finish, so including beyond where we are in the story, the whole story start to finish of OG7. It will be incorporating ideas and plot elements from the books, On the Way to a Smile, The Kids Are All Right, Tale of Two Pasts. It will probably come up once or twice discussing Advent Children, the movie, and I will give you fair warning, it is such a convoluted story. And going back through it, for how many times I've watched other people play, I've watched my play, I've recorded these videos, as many times as I've gone through it, there's always new ideas and thoughts that I have while doing stuff, so you'll see little interruptions occasionally throughout the video, like this! And those are just, during the editing process, something I forgot to mention. I came in and thought of it, and so added it in After Effects. So if those are annoying, sorry, but it is what it is. So I want these to generate discussion. I want to hear your thoughts, so please join me in the comments. Tell me things that maybe I missed. If you see something you missed, let me know. If you think I'm wrong about something, please. If you think I'm going off into crazy town, if you think I'm on the right track, great. Let's talk about it. Maybe discussion will raise some more ideas. Anyway, without further ado, thank you for joining me. I love this game. Hopefully you do too. So let's get into it. And now we're back to an Aerith that does not have the bow nor materia. This is the real Aerith body from our world. And here comes Cloud. And as he arrives, he's temporarily back to his little bubble here. Nobody else is in this bubble with him. Everybody else who is literally just hovering around her body is in this little bubble of world. That's all this thing is for. Now to them, he's walked up and he picks her up and possibly even says, Aerith, wake up. And they're like, dude, she's frickin' dead. What are you talking about?
Wake up.
Do you not understand this? What's wrong with you? And so this little pocket Aerith lasts just long enough to sort of reassure him, and then I think that world now fades. There either is just enough of it left over to maintain this alternate Aerith here for Cloud, or this is just flat out ultimate Aerith now joining and communicating with Cloud from this point on. I do not buy the theory that this is Genova screwing with Cloud. I think this is OG7 Aerith in the live stream, Ultimate Aerith. Because now if you came into this not having been prepared that Cloud is going to be a little weird at this point, and you didn't know anything that was going to happen, and Aerith had not given you some form of foreknowledge or warning, or at least prepared you in some way, someone would say something to Cloud here. Because he's just too, what the hell, man? He's like, okay, yeah, sure, let's go. Let's go, woo! And he's up and chipper practically, and everyone else is friggin' devastated. And they clearly notice, and they're clearly deliberately not calling him out on it. Now, of course, we don't get the dropping Aerith into the water scene. And I think that is, and I've seen this is not a unique theory to me, that memory has been suppressed in Cloud. Either he lasted, his memory, the thought something lasted long enough of reality to drop her in and put her into the water, and then, his denial reasserted itself to leave him where he is now, or that Aerith in that little pocket Aerith lasted long enough to tell him, this body is not me anymore, let me go, and I'll go down and do my and so it's now I'm just in the spirit, because Cloud is not treating that other Aerith as if anyone else can see her, so he's clearly aware of her on a different level than she's physically right there where other people should be able to see her. So to have that form of acceptance, he needs to acknowledge that she's not in this physical world. So I could very easily see that he accepted lowering her into the water because that little smiling wake up Aerith version told him, it's okay, let me go, I'll still be here to talk to you, etc. That's kind of the way I'm leaning, and that ultimately Cloud has not necessarily suppressed that moment. I think we've skipped it over because we, the viewers, are not ready to see what Cloud saw. And there's no way we could get through him lowering her body into the water like, bye, see you soon, without starting to give up the game a little bit and letting us know a little bit more about what's going on. So skipping that scene, I think, is for our benefit, not for Cloud's sanity. I think Cloud knows that this world's Aerith is beyond reach, is dead, but he believes that this other version is out there that can still be saved, that can still come back and rejoin them, that they'll officially meet again. And so I don't think he thinks Aerith is still alive in this world. I think he really just believes that there is this other version out there that he's supposed to be able to get to at some point, that's the one he saved. He knows she's out there. He knows she's alive. So he's living in that surety and clinging to it. And he's the only one that's been told this and that thinks this and believes this and sees this. And that combined with his denial is sort of wrapped up in him being so weird here. Because the other thing is, like, he's not telling them and saying, but she's fine, guys. What are y'all so sad about? I know we just dropped her body in the water, but she's still out there. Like, we don't know what's going on there. There's still very clearly some weirdness going on in Cloud's brain. Don't get me wrong. But this is... I think that moment was skipped over for us, but not for his benefit, but for ours and storytelling. And we'll get to that in my final predictions again. But I think reliving this moment and that final bit with Aerith and finding out, and number one, we restoring those moments of Cloud crying over her body and reasserting, this is what's actually happening in this world. This is reality. Reasserting that and seeing that moment of him crying over her body. Seeing what she might have told him and her lowering her into the water, one way or the other, however that's going to play out. That is all going to be what we get for restoring Cloud's self in the live stream instead of a rehash of what we saw with Tifa's live stream experience in this game. And I think it's going to be Ultimate Aerith and Zack and probably Tifa as well. The three of them are going to be all three involved. Possibly one bit per person. But I think all three of them are going to be involved in restoring this version of Cloud in part 3. Because I think they can't not give us Tifa and Cloud hashing out what really happened in Nibelheim. And her telling him the truth. But I think Zack telling Cloud what happened from his story, Zack's the only one that can tell that. Zack's the only one that can fill Cloud in. Because Cloud, at best, was comatose and in this Mako overdosed haze and would not have been aware of what was going on when he was in the tank and in the time with Zack. And so Zack is needed to fill that gap in, and Aerith is needed to fill this gap in. And when you have all three of those pieces, I think that gives us the real Cloud. So, and I'll rehash that again in my final predictions for part 3.
Can't stay here forever. We'd best get moving.
Yep. Sounds good.
Tifa's like, it's almost an exasperated thing there. And here is this moment of remembering the death part, and then here's this Aerith to sort of reassert, no, stay with me, Cloud. I'm still okay.
I'll see you off.
And this is a bit of a creepy version, but it is still the live stream theme. And speaking of the music, I have read that there are breakdowns in the music themes used in that final fight, and that there's something to do with Genova's theme and like an inverse of it, or like there's some weird breakdowns that are way beyond my musical ken. And
Tifa.
I don't know how to even describe them to properly break it down, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, I encourage you to look it up and read into it, because apparently there are musical themes going on that might offer clues as to what's happening with Aerith and Genova and all sorts of other things in this, from the fight scene on up through here, I think. So that would seem to be, with the water there, that would seem to be literally where Aerith's body would have been lowered in. And so that may literally have just happened moments ago. That's my guess from that timing there. Now, Tifa saw those flashes of that other world, as I'm saying it at least, where Aerith was not killed. And I wonder if Tifa is going to retain some sort of ability there and may have flashes of Aerith, or may still be able to talk with that Aerith in some form or fashion. Because someone may still need to be in touch with Ultimate Aerith other than Cloud, who is quite the unreliable, not an unreliable narrator, but an unreliable protagonist at this point. And someone's still got to handle Cloud. And I think Tifa may still have that. Like, there's nothing to indicate it here, but that would not at all surprise me in part 3, is if Tifa still had glimpses of Aerith and got some form of indications from her about what to do or how to deal with Cloud or what to say and what was going on. I think that may be a very good possibility. Okay, the final scene between Rufus and Glennovaroth.
I have to admit, you were quite the man. Who, me?
No, not you.
I guess not. Anyway, you haven't seen Viceroy Saruf, have you? He failed to show at an important event. Made us look like fools.
Maybe he wouldn't have, if you'd spent some money on that set.
Ah, you're probably right. Rich kids do like things just so.
And that moment there, of course, is one of the key indicators that leads people to believe that Rufus and Saruf are the same person. Their names notwithstanding, Rufus, Saruf, you can hear it. I'm still kind of the opinion that Saruf seems to be kind of the silent partner over there. We don't know exactly, and at least I don't, sorry. It is presumably in one of these prequel stories, it covered in Ever Crisis, or the original game it was in, when Rufus supposedly shot Glenn. So there, as far as I know at this point, there's still the possibility that he shot the real Glenn, or that he shot a Sephiroth Glenn, or a Genova Glenn. So if he shot the real Glenn, I would think that probably that Glenn survived. Because at this point, until we get to part 3 and we find out more of what's going on in Wutai, I am of the opinion that there is a real Glenn Lodbrok still alive and active in Wutai. And he is interacting with the silent partner, Saruf, who is Rufus, and is still acting in good faith over there, that he thinks that this Saruf is, whether he knows it's Rufus or not, but this is a character that he is interacting with and thinks is dealing in good faith, and is like, okay, well, here's Saruf to address you. And I think it came as a bit of a shock when that Saruf didn't show up. And I think that maybe the first appearance of Glenn here might have been the real Glenn. Because even the way he plays it, oh, congratulations from Saruf. Like, it still could be played that was the real Glenn. Because that's the only time he appears without, the black misting around him from Sephiroth power, Genova powers and whatnot. And so that could have been the real Glenn. And then all the appearances after that are Glennovaroths. I'm kind of leaning that way. That the real Glenn showed up at first. Because you see him outside of the interaction with Rufus, when there's no reason for him to look like Glenn down on the streets of Junon, if that is an impersonator. So the first interaction to introduce Rufus that this is a real person is the real one, and then after that it is Glennovaroth taking advantage of that and impersonating him for his own ends. And then the same thing, I think there is a Sarufaroth, whatever, who's in Wutai, who has been interacting with the real Glenn. And I think that the miscommunications and the fact that each of them thinks they're dealing with the real one, I think is going to really start to create some confusion. Clearly, it's to keep the war on track and reignite it instead of the ceasefire. Because where did the ceasefire come from? It was President Shinra and the old fogies in Wutai. Where did the resistance to the ceasefire come from? Rufus and Glenn and Saruf in Wutai. And so the reignition of hostilities, yes, we saw President Shinra and Heidegger and everybody trying to reignite the hostilities and tie Avalanche to Wutai for selling glorious war to the people for the purpose of advancing, to getting power and explaining away extraordinary measures and all that other fun stuff. But the real purpose of reigniting the war is Sephiroth's purpose. So I don't think Rufus is correct here when he says, oh, you were trying to keep me away from Sephiroth. Not really. I don't think Sephiroth gives a damn. maybe, I mean, that's a side benefit of keeping them and Cloud from being right on each other pursuing Sephiroth. And so that helps ensure Cloud gets where Sephiroth wants him to go without any more interference than necessary. But really the purpose is the war.
Still got results, though, even without him. Resistance elements are more fired up than ever.
You know, Glenn, I'm on to you. This war's nothing but a ploy to distract me from Sephiroth.
And there's that moment of, let's see, how can I use this? It's like, yeah. You
How
got
very
me.
astute.
How clever of you.
Regardless, the plan is already in motion. Our promised land will become reality. Our father's dream, accomplished by his son.
I want the real thing, not some imitation.
The real Sephiroth? The real Glenn?
An imitation's all you deserve.
The real Promised Land? I'm not sure.
In the back, just like old times.
See, now if Rufus sees Glenn in part 3, what's he going to think? Is he going to think it's another one of those? Even if it's the real Glenn. I am so looking forward to the Wu-Tai part. Alright, here we are, under the sea. Alright, so we can clearly see the blue and the purple fringe on these. I have said all along that these weapons are going to evolve into the weapons we know and love from OG7. And that blue one there, I think, is going to show up as the Sapphire weapon, and when he attacks Junon, I think we're going to see that scar on his shoulder. And so when we, because they can't not give us those weapons, come on. And when they do, if we see that scar, then we'll know that's the case.
I couldn't have dreamt that.
And the purple one then would become the ultimate weapon,
all felt way
or
too
Ultima weapon,
real.
excuse me. And then we just haven't seen Diamond, Ruby, and Emerald yet. Emerald weapon, the big honkin' one, of course,
Does this world unite?
was temporarily stored or housed or trapped or slumbering, whatever you want to call it, under Benora in Crisis Core. And you can see him back in the background. And originally, most or all of the weapons were in the Northern Crater in OG7. So there's Cloud waking up to some place with lots of flowers, alive. So probably not a doomed world with a comatose or dead Aerith,
But who's
because
to
those
say
flowers don't seem
they
to do
can't
so well
unite
there.
again?
So this could be the real world, or our worlds rather, which I still think is a doomed world, the Beagle world. But the flowers seem to be doing okay in that world. Now this is the point in the background for The Kids Are Alright where Evan Townsend's mom follows these guys as they head north up to the Icicle area. And so in some way, shape, or form, she's in the Nibelheim area here and then heads north, and I believe she dies there. I don't think she ever... I don't remember if it's established how she dies, but I'm pretty sure she dies while she's up there. I need to reread that. But you can see all of them heading out. Or at least most of them, but probably all. So this is presumably still... I wonder if that's... because those snow-capped mountains up there, I wonder if that's towards the glacier in the northern crater. I don't remember seeing snow-capped mountains anywhere else. But we are presumably still up on that northern continental area where the temple was. And so when Cloud looks up at the sky, this is part of my theory that this world has been doomed all along. And now that he's gone through the Date World experience with Aerith and understands that, he can see it. And because he's crossed worlds maybe, and this is, getting closer to Ultimate Cloud, as some people have called it. But regardless, we're now to the point where Cloud can see what Aerith was seeing all along. That this is a doomed world. Everybody else isn't ready to see it yet. Or they're not capable of it. The next one who could see it might be Tifa, having gone into the live stream, but none of the rest of them have crossed into other worlds yet. So that could be part of it. Whatever mechanism it is that allows that. Now, I've seen someone pointed out, or tried to point out, that when Cloud is not looking here, Aerith is not present. And it's only when Cloud is looking over here that Aerith is here, so that was part of that Aerith is literally only in his mind, and he's projecting her visually. But coming up in a second, you can see where Aerith is there, and Cloud is still looking the other way, basically. And so I don't think that theory holds water. And I've seen it in some big theory crafting videos and stuff. I don't think that theory holds water. Now, acknowledge that he's looking at the materia there, which the angle, I'll admit the clear materia has thrown me off a bit, because sometimes when you look at it, it looks black, and sometimes it looks clear and it's whitish there. And it took me a while to realize that that's Cloud's glove magnified and projected in it. And I mean, symbolically, I think it still holds that it can become either the white or the black materia. But physically, it's not changing. It's just what you see behind it, essentially. So we can see Aerith. She does not react when the engine kicks off. Cloud is looking somewhere else, right there.
Oh, what Aerith actually do, anyway?
See, she's the only one that doesn't react, so obviously she's not reacting to the same stimuli as everyone else.
With that, we are cleared for
I don't know that there would be a reason that she would react.
Finally.
But she does seem to sort of teleport around
there.
without necessarily crossing the intervening distance. She has a shadow, though. Red can sense her presence.
Aerith?
Which I think lends itself against this is Jenova screwing with people, Cloud specifically, but I think the fact that Red senses that is Aerith, I think lends itself to this really being the real her. She's got the same shadow, it looks like. So in here, this one threw me for a while. It's clear, it's black, now it's clear. That one took me a bit, and I had to really figure out that was his finger behind it, is what was doing it.
The hell?
Now, this is the closest and best image we have of the black materia. And it stays still, is the other thing. Like, it tends to move around a lot, even if we get a close-up, so it's hard to really get a good look at it. I think it's weird that it has that sphere inside of it. Okay, so now we see Cloud memory zapping. Clearly, you know, it's his trauma / Genova / whatever the hell else is going on in his brain, fighting for control over what he remembers and sees.
The reunion.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say for a second before that moment was that the black materia is just special. It's different. So is the white materia. So is the pure materia. Those three are essentially each unique. The appearance of the black is different than the rest. It has that orb within the orb look, and is more alive here in this version than some of the other times we've seen it. And this is presumably the real black materia that has been brought here from between the worlds. What we still don't know is how Cloud got his hands on it. Because last we saw, Sephiroth had it, took it with him when he left, then still had it with him when he dropped in to stab Aerith? That was not the Sephiroth that we fought. Stabby Sephiroth was Genova. Ultimate Sephiroth is who took the black materia and swiped the limb off and sent Aerith and Cloud falling down. So how did Cloud get the black materia? I don't know. I think that the fact that he's like, oh, hey, look at this. Look what I've got. I think is one of those mysteries that is going to be filled in part 3. So I don't think we're supposed to know for sure how he got it. Because obviously everyone who watches was like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? I don't think I saw anybody play this and be like, oh, yeah, check it out. Nobody called that. Like, nobody saw the fact that he was just going to come and pull out the black materia. Because there's not really an explanation for how he's got it. Because I think originally you fight a Glennovaroth at the crater in the snowy area, rather, in OG. And that's where you get the black materia back from Sephiroth. And then Cloud is like, hey, somebody, most likely, Red, hang on to this for me so I don't accidentally give it to Sephiroth coming up. And then you go to the crater, you find the real Sephiroth, Sephiroth tricks Red, and Red comes and gives it to Cloud. Cloud then immediately hands it off to the real Sephiroth. So this is different. We're still pursuing a very similar path to OG, but we're still doing things very differently in how we're doing them. So the fact that Cloud has it now is uncharted territory. He's not supposed to have it quite this early. So I'm not sure where they're going to go with that one. The fact that he somehow attaches it to the Buster Sword, that's a new thing. That's not how we've seen materia seem to work. We've never actually seen them take a piece of materia and slot it in somewhere. And so we have no idea what it looks like or how the mechanism works of going from an orb this big to slotting down into Tifa's glove this big. So maybe that's what it looks like every time. In Advent Children, you see something similar to this actually, where Kadaj, I think it is, who he takes a materia and it sort of absorbs down into his arm, into armor or something like that. But so this is actually kind of in keeping with that, come to think of it. I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going here.
Yeah, one sec.
And the Buster Sword only has 2 visible slots on it, so nobody can see it.
You have to promise not to look up.
Here's this reminder. See, now, again,
Don't look up.
Well, now I gotta look.
Cloud is the only one that sees it.
Fine,
And I think
but don't
Aerith
let
could
it
see
get
it
to you.
all along.
Don't let what get to me.
It's not real. Just an illusion.
It's more than you think,
Now let's go get Sephiroth.
I think.
He's hiding up north.
North.
Now watch Barrett.
Trust me, he is. Soldier's intuition.
He looks
Oh,
at Tifa
yeah? Better
for
hope you're
reassurance. Like, are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
All right, fine. We trust you.
And I think that's coming down to
Just
those conversations we
remember,
didn't
got
see.
Everything riding on this. And that's a load you'd best be ready to carry.
And like, he was not looking at Cloud during most of that.
Capacity as it is.
He was looking past Cloud like he couldn't bring
Don't
himself to
worry
look
about
at him.
me. I can handle it.
Looks at Tifa. Like, are you sure? Are you really, really sure that we're listening to him right now?
Take care.
Now, I want to know what they see of the, like, if they were to look
Okay,
out,
getting
did they
back?
see Cloud just chatting with thin air? Or is this all taking place in kind of a
And if I said I
split-second
wasn't,
moment in his head?
don't worry. It's like a second home.
I guess. But what if something happens?
Then I'll send up smoke.
One of the arguments that I saw that this was actually Jenova screwing with Cloud is that Aerith is mostly rehashing lines from their experience together. And so Jenova would theoretically, under this, be drawing from his memories of her to craft these lines that sound like her to convince him that this is real. Okay, fine. I still don't buy that it's Jenova for a multitude of reasons. This is also just Aerith. It's a callback to their experiences together. If she were to say, you know, if she were to lean over Cloud laying on the grass and she's like, hello, that would be Aerith making a callback to their experiences together. It's just, you know, this is a shared experience she's bringing up. So I don't buy that theory at all.
Thanks. I'll keep an eye out.
Now, the part of this that still strikes me as weird,
I'll put everything I've got into
Right there.
my prayers. I'll stop the meteor.
because this world's Aerith, Cloud is holding the black materia. Sephiroth cannot be using it to summon the meteor if Cloud is holding the frickin' black materia. Which means this Aerith is ultimate Aerith referring to the broader thing. Who knows what's going to happen, that Cloud is going to end up giving the materia to Sephiroth, and Sephiroth is going to use it to summon the meteor. And that all those things are still going to happen. And she's telling him she's doing her part to stop the thing that if Cloud just hung on to the frickin' black materia shouldn't be a problem for him, right? Well, she knows that's not the case. So when I first saw this, I was like, why? What the hell is she talking about? Why would this be a thing? And I think it's because this is not little sub-world Aerith. This is not their Aerith. This is ultimate Aerith looking at the bigger picture, who is aware of the broader implications and the broader story of what's going on here.
And I'll leave the rest to you. Good
Because
luck.
in the end, Cloud still has to deal with Sephiroth himself.
I will stop
She'll take care of the
Sephiroth.
meteor.
Trust me.
You promise?
Promise.
And yet, no promises await.
Walking city streets with worn cobblestone, listening to people rushing past to rhythms all their own.
Goodbye.
And that is Aerith saying goodbye to Cloud, because arguably she may never see Cloud again. In OG, she didn't. And so she is either saying goodbye to Cloud, goodbye to all the friends, or goodbye to the possibility of Clarith. Because all their experiences in the dream world and all these other things have shown that that really is not a thing, and it's not going to happen. Because that's not a farewell or a so long or I'll see you soon. That was a goodbye. And we're immediately met with, you know, you'll find me, but no promises await. She's hoping maybe they'll meet again someday, but yeah. So the ending is still quite ambiguous, and I think it's obviously that way on purpose to keep us guessing and interested in theory crafting and all sorts of other fun stuff, but so predictions for part 3. I think that we're gonna find out, and this is a prediction for how we got here as well as where we're going next. I think ultimately what happened is that Aerith in OG, so after having been there and stopped the meteor and is in the live stream, etc., at some point in there, probably after Advent Children, I think, because I think somewhere in an interview they said, you know, that Advent Children happened, like it's an established part of the canon, not that it won't happen, etc. I think it happened. And so I think that Aerith, after Advent Children, through some mechanism, this is the part I don't know. It could have just been suffused with the power of the live stream, but through some mechanism, found that she could make a change, or deliberately tried to change something. Like, it occurred to her, what if this was different? What if with her knowledge of being in the live stream and the potential knowledge of possible worlds, because at that point the other worlds are only created when the boundaries of fate are breached. Then the other worlds are created. And as far as we know, there was only the one fate and the one canon storyline, the one world of OG7. And that went straight on through to Advent Children, and everything is fine. There's no indication of an alternative anywhere up through then. And then we get an Aerith back at the time of remake with knowledge of that world and that timeline. And I think that starting from the moment, at least, when Aerith is looking at the live stream, or looking at the Mako glow at the beginning of remake, that is sort of the kickoff moment for this world. And that is the awareness of Ultimate Aerith flooding into this alternate version of Aerith in this alternate world. And the attempt was to do things better, do things differently, save people. Maybe, can we still save the world? Can we not drop the plate on everybody? Can we save tens of thousands of people from dying in Midgar? Can we stop the meteor at all? Can we do this? Like, all these possibilities. Can we save Zack? All these possibilities that occur to her, and whether she means to or not, it's strong enough that it creates this alternate world. And so the Whispers come into play to, no, we're not doing this alternate world stuff. Nope, this is the story that we're doing here. And they try to keep this alternate world on track. And every now and then there's just a little something that throws things off. And so the Whispers show up. And the things that are thrown off are either by accident or design. Someone trying to change something. And the Whispers are just trying to keep everything back on track. No, yes, I get, why did Barrett decide not to take Cloud on the second bombing mission? We don't know. What influenced him? Could it have been Sephiroth somehow trying to get him not to do it? Maybe. And then the Whispers are like, no, we need to go hurt Jessie. Make sure she gets hurt so that Cloud comes back and is hired for this job. All right, we're back on track. And so as long as we go through the same major canon events, fate is not changed, and everything is back where it should be. Then, of course, we get to the very end, and what has happened. Biggs is alive, but almost immediately is killed in almost exactly the same way that he died originally. He falls down a big distance and dies. Original fate restored. We get to the moment when we defeat the Whispers, and the setup for that moment is created by Sephiroth. And that is presumably Ultimate Sephiroth ripping that hole into that between world state where the Whispers, or it's into some alternate version here where we can fight the Whispers, and Sephiroth can't beat them on his own because Sephiroth is not Cloud, and it all revolves around Cloud. And so enlisting Cloud's help, making sure Cloud is strong enough, makes it so that Cloud can get to this point and be strong enough in this world as a denizen of this world to defeat the Whispers. That breaks fate, and suddenly possibilities are open. Because now we have officially busted fate wide open, and new worlds are getting created left and right. But only for major enough differences. And so I think at that point, that's the time when Ultimate Aerith, she grabs, in that explosion of Whispers at the end of Remake, she grabs that Zack and gets him into that alternate world with that Cloud. And she grabs the Biggs from the world so that she can bring him in and use him for her ends. And the other people around there are all denizens of that doomed world. I don't know what the difference is that created that world. And it could be maybe Cloud died with everybody else, but at the very least we know everybody else died, and that is a major difference. And so that could be the action that really was creating the Doom world, was just the fact that everybody else died. That Cloud theoretically was still on the run. We never see or hear from him again, but them dying in the collapse of the motorway or in the giant, avalanche weather weapon storm, supposedly, that, if they died in that. But if one way or another, everybody except Aerith died. Aerith ended up in the coma. And so that world became the one that Zack was put in. We don't know what was the difference in the world that Aerith set aside for herself, her dream world there for her and Cloud. But there was a different enough world to create that difference in that world and then keep it around long enough for a version of her and Cloud to have their final moments there together. So I think what we're going to get to in part 3, and I've said this at various points along this series, is Sephiroth's goal is this reunion, and it's to combine all of these worlds and create back to just one world again, but now unbound by the original fate of the original story. And now he has the option of winning. In the original storyline, he lost, and there's no way to avoid that. In any of these other worlds, potentially, it'll just get dragged back to the original story. And so the ability for him to control the Dark Whispers to try and guide fate, this world that we're in, this is the world that we broke the Whispers in. That we broke fate in, is this Beagle world. And so this is the world where everything is happening. I still think it is originally and ultimately a doomed world compared to the original world and timeline and events. Hence the reason I've said that Aerith can see the crack all along, and now Cloud can see the crack. And so this is the world that matters. This is the world where Cloud has to be converted to Sephiroth's cause and turned to Dark Cloud. But he has to be corrupted and consumed by his negative emotions, and that's what Sephiroth was trying to do at this point. I don't know that Sephiroth is going to try as much that same tack in part 3. And obviously, at some point when we recover Cloud, I think then that tactic is useless, and Sephiroth will have to keep trying on another route. And so I think this game was the big push on Cloud, right up to that ending moment, and Aerith beat him by creating that little pocket world. So from here, well, obviously we're headed up to the North Crater next, which, little bit of random lore about that. In Remake, the description for Shiva indicated that she used her power to seal in with ice and everything a great wound. And as near as I can tell, the real Shiva sealed the North Crater, and that's why it's a glacier, is because Shiva created that as a way of containing, it's like a giant ice band-aid over the original wound that was created when Jenova hit. And so I'm pretty sure that, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that's what that is that the real Shiva created that. Which means, and we got the lore in this game about Titan creating the grasslands, about the lore of the original Phoenix in Junon, and that there was a Bahamut. So all along so far, Chadley has been recreating virtual versions of the summons. I kind of gotta wonder if we're going to get the real things in part 3. I don't know about that, and I doubt it, but I kind of gotta wonder. That's a remote hope, because there are still eidolons or summons or icons, whatever you want to call them. There are still summons in this game from OG that we haven't seen yet. So we still have Hades, we still have Bahamut Zero that we haven't seen yet. Of course, we have Knights of the Round. Oh god, there's a couple more somewhere in this. So basically, there's enough to flesh out a full group again, even if we don't revisit the ones from either of these two games. Because this time we got the overlaps where we got Ifrit, and Leviathan. It's like we got some of the ones from remake into this one, so I could see them giving us one or two from now carried over into part 3. And there's still plenty of ones to revisit for part 3. I saw a breakdown someone did that if you look at the world intel that we have now, the regions we have, and the regions that we haven't gotten, and if you count, like, I think the sky might have been an extra region, but it basically counted it out, and in the end, there were 12 regions, and it wasn't really a stretch to get to that number. And so that was 12 possible world intel things to complete for 12 nights of the round. And that would be sort of the end result of completing Chadley's world intel, would be access to this uber powerful Knights of the Round, sort of like how we did it all to get Gilgamesh here, even though Gilgamesh isn't an all-powerful summon. But that's how we would get Knights of the Round in part 3. And if that's how they do it, that's great. That makes sense in game, and that's a perfectly valid way of approaching it. So I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here because I don't have an ordered thought way of doing this. But anyway. So, Sephiroth plot we covered. Aerith's goal. I think in the end, whether she meant to do this from the start or is just now that she's stuck with this situation, she's now has to play this game of chess with Sephiroth. And doing it quite well. Aerith has to either restore the original timeline and the original events and just put us right back where we were in the OG7 world and just get everything as lined up as possible and get us back to that story, or take advantage of this broken fate and try and work things enough that there's a slightly better outcome. And if we go that route, I think what it's going to lead us to is that now Advent Children doesn't need to happen. And possibly Dirge of Cerberus doesn't need to happen. And that's how they get around having to still make a brand new remade game to give us Dirge, or try and line up with events to give us Advent Children. I think arguably the ending we're going to get is going to be a better outcome than we saw at the end of OG7. And I think it's going to be in such a way that Sephiroth is completely defeated, which negates Advent Children. And if we go down into the depths of Midgar, down to the deep ground, when we go back there in part 3, which I'm predicting and I really hope is true, then that negates the need for Dirge potentially. So part 3 is going to be a massive game. And when you get down to it, I mean, what is left in the story that we need to cover, and from OG7. From here, we go to the North Crater, through the glacier, Icicle Inn. We go to the crater. We have the weapon fight, the showdown with Sephiroth, Hand of the Black Materia. Weapons appear. That's the end of Disc 1. Finally. Then we're in Weapons versus the World with Junon and getting the airship. Woohoo! And then on to the big Materia project and finding Cloud and restoring Cloud. And then going back to Midgar. When you stretch the original game out across 3 of them, each one really doesn't have a whole lot in it. And if you think back as far as plot and events and, actual plot line and advancements that happen in this game, there's not much. There's really not. But the plot of this game is traveling. There's not a lot of events that happen. There's a few, don't get me wrong, but there's not that many when you really think about it. There's not a lot of plot events. Mostly this game is characters and building the relationships and giving us a reason to give a damn and to have our hearts ripped out of us when someone dies. And I think that they don't have to focus quite as much on that sort of thing in part 3. And so part 3 is going to be all those bit of plot points that I just mentioned, but there's still a lot to fill in. Because, oh yeah, we have Wutai. We're gonna go to Wutai, probably a couple of times. Wutai's gonna be at least one area, possibly two. So, I mean, there is still roughly a third of the game of plot points to hit in this massive game we still have to get through. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of room to work with, really, is what I'm trying to get to in that. Now, real fast coming up here, and I'm interrupting myself to point this out, because I did not notice this, so I'm relying on something I read, that you don't see some of these moments in here, and there's some suspicious blank spots that are the ending involving Aerith. Because this is like scenes from every cutscene in the game. And now we've gone straight from that moment to these two, Zack, Whispers, and the Black Robes. Now from here, the cutscenes would have gone back to the grasslands and Aerith in the plain. But we just skipped all of that stuff and jumped straight to the plane flying off. So there is a gap there, literally and symbolically. And there was the gap of dropping Aerith in the water and that whole, or, you know, that we already missed, but the stuff right after that, rather. So there are gaps there that I had not noticed originally. So that holds up. Okay, so Aerith's plan, Sephiroth's plan, covered both of those. I will have more to add and a follow-up to insert at the end of this once the credits have rolled. And I will cover anything that I missed. Because I have Post-it notes strewn all around my desk in a pile here with all the things to point out across the game. And I need to go through and find out the stuff that I haven't mentioned yet. So I will see you in that video momentarily. Thank you, Square.